welcome to our third Flashbacks movie. Our final movie of the week this week was My Left Foot from 1989. Irish writer Christy Brown is born with cerebral palsy and misdiagnosed as mentally disabled for the first 10 years of his life.
Because he can't talk.
Because he can't talk. Yeah, actually, there is many years until he learns to talk properly. Basically, till he's about an adult. It's unfortunate, and yeah. Let's dive right into this movie. What do we like?
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah.
There you go.
Daniel Day-Lewis. I'm going to get a little personal here, real quick. As I was mentioning to some people yesterday, what I really liked about this movie is he does really throw himself into a character, and he probably did a lot of study of people with cerebral palsy to get into this. My nephew, when he was born, that's what they thought he had, because he's very similar in the sense. I think he's like 3 or 4 now. He can't talk. He's still very much kind of like baby sized. And has to be carried around. His muscles are always tight, so he has to be on muscle relaxers. And I was watching this movie, I'm just like, I can see exactly why they would have diagnosed him that way, because it was so similar. And just to see, like, even the child in this movie who played it, I wonder if he did have cerebral palsy, because it's just
great.
It's also intense.
He did a fantastic job. I thought both the child who played I forget the character's name was
Christy
Brown. Christy Brown. And Daniel Day-Lewis did a phenomenal job, because this wasn't a character where you get in character. There was a progression to this character. Just seeing him kind of grow into his painting stages, his speaking stages, and how that moved on throughout the movie. I mean, it's a very fluid character, so it's not just like you get in character and then you get out of character. There was a progression to it, and he freaking nailed it.
Yeah, and it's not just a clever title. The reason it's called My Left Foot is because he pretty much does everything with his foot. That's like the one super functional part of him.
Yep, the one limb he has the most control over is his left foot, so he uses it to write, to paint, and
to open things. And you'll just see
Play
him.
soccer.
Yeah.
Football.
Yeah, and it's so awesome. One thing that I love about this movie, and again, that I find different than American movies, an American movie about somebody with a disability, it's all about how just awful people are to them and how they overcome adversity. Here, he's overcoming adversity, but his community takes him in, like his family loves him. His dad, who seems kind of like brutish, is also like super loving of him. He just happens to be a drunk. But like you expect the neighborhood kids to tease him, and like none of that happens.
I think there is some of that. I mean, his
It's
family is they take care of him, and some of the neighborhood people take care of him, but it's not all peaches and cream.
There's some of that.
Some people.
I think what Phil's saying is, if this were a Hollywood movie,
That's all it would be.
It would be completely overemphasized that he went through all these hardships. And I think here it's completely obvious he had his share of hardships, but on the whole, it seemed like he had a pretty supporting family, so they didn't try to downplay that. They just, and I'm sure that's what came out of his book. Was that his family was very supportive of him, and he probably, in the hands of another family, wouldn't have turned out the same.
Exactly, and you see that early on there when his mother falls down the stairs, the other woman brings him to his house, and she keeps pointing out how stupid he is and everything, because she doesn't know that, right on his surface, he can understand everything, he just can't articulate.
Having seen the movie Pollock, I also thought there were some tie-ins with this. Once his paintings start finding success and he is getting with a more sophisticated crowd of people, because he comes from this blue-collar, working-class family in Dublin, and you get the impression that those people look at his art and see genius, but then they look at him and just see, that there's no way this came from this man, and there's no way they can relate with him, except for a few people. But it's reminded me a lot of Pollock in that crowd is just the most uppity, pretentious people you could possibly ever meet.
And he does what he can to try to fit in, and he starts drinking and whatever, and just kind of like, hey, like, I'm one of the guys, and he falls in love and not reciprocated. And that was one of the saddest parts to me in the movie, even though the woman's kind of repulsive. Just the fact that somebody like him, like, he probably never really gets with a woman. He doesn't over the course of the movie, just because, that's kind of...
He seemed to have some pretty mad game, though.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like, if he just didn't have that going against him, like, there
But then he probably wouldn't be as charming as
Exactly. Yeah.
true.
He'd probably just be an asshole at that
Probably.
point, coming from that family.
But going
Those
back,
poor folks.
yeah, going back to the family though, I
Mm-hmm.
thought the mother and father were excellent.
Yes.
Brenda Fricker plays
The
the
bird
mother.
lady from Home Alone 2.
Yep.
Yeah, she's great. I mean, she's such a warm character. She's the heart of this movie. And then the father, who's played by Ray McAnally, I think his name is. It's kind of a weird name, but he plays like a very gruff, standoffish father who's he's unsure whether to take his son under his wing and accept him, or how much he wants to accept him. And I just thought he played that so well, and the relationship between the mother and father, their relationship was excellent as well. I thought they nailed the movie. They really ground this movie.
I enjoyed Brenda Fricker as well. I didn't quite know that she had it in her, and I believe that the father did just an outstanding job. Just this guy who was very callous on the outside and proud, but on the inside is just a teddy bear.
Mm-hmm. Probably my favorite scene with him is when Christy writes for the first time and spells out mother, and you just see it because I think the father, like, he was loving of him, but he was just kind of resigned. Okay, well, my son's kind of just disabled, or like, and he thought it was mental because he couldn't talk. But he just immediately scoops him up, brings him down to the bar, and is like, my son's a genius and everything. Mm-hmm. He just has so much pride in his voice, and it was just a lot of heartwarming moments.
That was a really powerful moment. I really enjoyed that as well.
Is there anything we don't like? There's one scene for me that I don't like.
Okay, what is it?
And I don't like it for a very specific reason. It's the bar scene after the father dies. Spoilers, the father dies.
Having a wake at a bar.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
It gets real slapsticky when the fight starts.
Okay.
Like they're like you see people. It just seems like it just goes into comedy for a couple minutes. People like breaking bottles over heads, and just like the expressions or whatever in the scene. I'm just
it's like a Batman episode.
Yeah, and I'm just like, where the hell did this come
some
from?
Slide whistle could have gone.
Yeah, there's like no comedy in the movie, no comedy, and it's like, what?
Yeah, that seemed a little bit stereotypical. My immediate reaction was like, oh, that's how all Irish bars are, right? Just people breaking out into fights like Boondock Saints and.
Get the till, get the till.
Hey, fuck ass, get me a beer. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's really, for me, that was it. Problems in the movie. I thought this was great.
And I think this is a performance where you could say this could have been the genesis of our question of the week. Name a role that he could not nail, Daniel Day-Lewis. And because this one is just, it seems so different and more difficult than other ones. And he just is amazing.
And you really lose like Daniel Day-Lewis into this role, like you do with pretty much any role he takes on, but this one especially.
Yes,
his physicality is insane. Like the way that he gets himself around the house. Like there's a scene where this girl comes to kind of basically be like, no, I don't like you like me, and he has to like drag himself down the stairs or whatever, and then she like leaves immediately, and I just get the feeling like just in his head, it's just like I just came down the stairs. Like I gotta get back up there now.
One of the only things that was confusing to me was toward the end of the movie. It seemed like he started to have success with his painting
and his writing.
But you didn't really see that progress. You see the first success, and then you see him and his family in tuxedos, and really nice cars, and it was kind of confusing as to how that progressed, because I think it would have been interesting to explore this, working class family from Dublin growing into this, sort of more wealthy lifestyle. Mm-hmm. So I wish that could have been a more part of it, but I haven't read the book, My Left Foot, so that may have been, I'm sure that's in there, but I don't know to what degree it's explored.
And I was kind of disappointed in the final act as well. Largely because at a certain point it becomes about him wanting to have a relationship with a woman. And that was like the main goal of the third act, was to have him have a relationship. And they set it up over the course of the movie.
Yeah, with the flash forwards, I guess, or the present days before they were doing the flashbacks.
Right. And it just it wasn't romantic, it just didn't really ring true. It's just, it seemed really odd, and it didn't necessarily work for me. And like, why was it such obviously
it seemed like an odd footnote. to this
Yeah.
movie, or an odd bookend, I should say. It just seemed like a strange way to wrap it up because
Yeah.
it didn't really wrap it up.
Didn't it end with like a freeze frame too?
Yeah. Freeze frames.
Yeah.
Bane of our
I don't know. It
existence.
was just kind of a weird of him developing a relationship with a woman, but we don't really see the relationship. We just see like the first time they meet, and then we get the freeze frame and then a title like they married like a year later or something.
Yeah,
It was
that
just-
part seemed kind of tacked on. It's like,
Yeah.
okay.
It just seems weird of that being like a crowning moment for his life, and
I would have rather seen another 30 minutes on this movie where they kind of,
yeah.
okay, yeah, they get married. Can we see?
And I think having seen Pollock, you would have liked to seen even just a scene where he creates his art, or a scene where he creates one of his poems.
Well, we maybe not with the poems or whatever, but we do see parts where he does the art. It's just never as drawn out as it is in Pollock because that movie is so much about him being the artist.
Yeah, but I would have liked to, you see the genesis, like what inspires him to do it, and then you see him starting to do it, and you see the end result. But I thought in Pollock you got a good
You
taste
got a lot of like the whole breadth of his career.
yeah, and how he does it, you know, because
Yeah.
it's interesting. The guy paints with his foot. I mean,
I kind of wish this movie was another like 45 minutes long. I don't say that very often, but I wanted more.
Well, why don't we go ahead and rate this movie?
Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna give this a 4.5. I don't think this is a. I don't know how uplifting this movie is. I don't know that this is a movie that I want to watch again very many times, but it's a great movie with, in my eyes, like not the greatest rewatchability, but I still think it is pretty outstanding. Just if you want to see the performance by Daniel Day-Lewis, it is ridiculous.
You know, like I said, I was let down by the kind of the end of how this movie finished. Everything leading up to that was great. The acting performances are so good. I mean, Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yep.
I think
Period.
that's like a verb for great acting.
Daniel Day-Lewis did.
Yeah.
And the supporting cast were great too. But the third act really let me down, and you know I'm going to give it a 3.5.
Word. I'm gonna give it 3.5. Damn. I'm gonna give it 5. I really like this movie. I do wish there would have been more to it, in terms of length and just more, because it just seemed like there were little promises that they were gonna go into and just nothing.
Did you just give this movie a 5?
Yep, I give it a 5. I really liked it.
I would give Daniel Day-Lewis's acting performance a 5.
Yeah.
I find it hard to give the movie that, though. But that's okay. To each his own.
I could probably dial it back to a 4.5, and I wouldn't feel bad about it.
Well, stick with your 5.
Yeah.
If you really enjoyed it that much.
I did. Like, I was really enthralled by this movie. Everybody's acting was amazing. The story is... I don't like uplifting stories, and it was just like... It was really nice. And I think maybe because I have a personal connection to somebody who has, like, a similar disability, that makes me kind of... Like, this makes me really hopeful.